Hi, welcome. It's great to be here today. My name is Brendan Kim. I'm with Samsung Next. I'm one of the managing directors there. Samsung Next is a investment arm for Samsung Electronics, and we invest in founders in areas that Samsung cares about. And of course, AI is all the rage, and within Samsung, we're very much interested in what's happening there. So we're making a lot of early investments in AI. And we have today two companies in our portfolio, some of the most promising companies in our portfolio. I want to introduce them and give them a chance to talk about themselves a little bit and maybe introduce the company. I'll start with Vike, as in Viking, right? So Viking, yeah. Vike, go ahead.
Hi all, I'm Vike, CEO of DynamoFL. Background about myself, I got my master's and PhD from MIT's Computer Science Department in Privacy-Preserving Machine Learning, and basically converted my thesis to my startup, DynamoFL. So what do we do at DynamoFL? We offer the end-to-end infrastructure for training privacy-preserving and regulation-compliant generative AI models. So everything from like identifying all the privacy vulnerabilities in your large language models or computer vision models to making sure how do you train them in an optimized and in a regulation-compliant manner to effectively deploying them on like device or like servers. We provide the end-to-end infrastructure.
And then also with us is Jana. So that's like Anna, but with a Y. So Jana?
That's right. Yeah, I'm Jana Wellinger, CEO and founder of Craftful. Craftful is a co-pilot for product managers and other product builders. My background before starting Craftful is that I was a product manager and ultimately led product teams at various tech companies. And we always struggled with all the user feedback we were getting from channels like App Store reviews, support tickets, various sales calls, even Twitter. And so as I started experimenting with large language models, this was obviously a use case that I tried out. We ended up pivoting to this current solution at the beginning of the year, have now over 20,000 users use Craftful every day to analyze all of their user feedback and incorporate it into their product development process. We've now saved over 100,000 hours, which means that they can use that time for strategic work, which is really, really exciting. That's what I would have wanted to do as a PM.
Fantastic, thanks. I think this is really interesting to talk about, like when the first public launch of ChatGPT came out, there's this huge enthusiasm for Gen AI, and it seemed like you could disrupt anything and everything. Like you could start a startup in Gen AI and everything was up for grabs. I think we're coming into the realization that maybe that's not really the case, that yes, AI has lowered the costs of innovation and it can be very disruptive, but like any other space, it's not like you can just pick a spot and just do it. You have to really like figure out where you want to focus, right? And so, Vike, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about like why DynamoFL, how it's found its spot, and what it took to get there.
Yeah, definitely. So our focus from day one has always been in privacy. So when like ChatGPT came, it was actually to our advantage because one drawback of ChatGPT, as we all know.
Because you guys had started before ChatGPT?
Yeah,
right?
we started like way before, like a year before ChatGPT. So before that, it was called like more like natural language processing, and when ChatGPT came, the word LLMs became famous.
Right.
Right. But like what I see is like obviously, as people started using ChatGPT, big financial companies or insurance companies, they were obviously facing an obvious challenge, which is like you just can't send like, say, sensitive data or like sensitive documents to a third-party provider because it has a lot of sensitive information. So basically, it was just like a blessing in disguise for us, where like our like entire privacy infrastructure, we just had to like make sure that we rebranded our company as like more of a privacy-preserving LLM company because it was much easier for us to like sell to our big Fortune 500 enterprises for whom this was actually a big challenge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like it was disruptive, but in a good way.
Yeah, it was for you. You guys were sort of well positioned when this all came about. For Jana, you weren't. You had to like pivot yourself into this,
Yeah.
right? So what was your thought process in like picking that spot, picking the spot around where you're operating?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're building a different solution for product managers and product builders back then. We did have, actually way before ChatGPT came out, we had a GPT-3 feature, powered feature in our product. And at some point we realized that actually this feature is taking over our product. We're getting much more interest for that feature specifically. We're getting it outside of the specific subset of product managers that we were targeting, and so that was sort of like my first clue. Even though it's a problem that I've experienced myself as a product manager, I still went out and validated it before doubling down on it. So I went to a conference around the same time last year. There's the Masters of Scale Summit invite-only conference. It's a good audience to target, and I was basically just introduce myself and be like, I'm Jana, CEO of Craftful, we do this. And then I would listen for feedback to see what am I getting, what kind of feedback am I getting from product builders, what sort of like solutions would they want to see built with this, right? Like they assumed we were already that pivoted product at that point. And so I kind of leveraged that to be our positioning, to be that initial feature set that we pivoted with, and then we went from there. That was sort of like our starting point.
And was that like a natural pivot for you, or because sometimes when you pivot, you're like, you don't want to leave the other stuff behind, right? You want to cling to what you started with. And it can be hard sometimes to let all that go and grab something that you think might be it, but you're not quite sure yet either, right?
Yeah. I think it just took off so incredibly fast that none of us on the team had any time to just reflect on it. We changed our positioning, started building this new feature set, and while we're doing that, people were organically just signing up via Twitter, just like following along, like I would, tweet random tweets about non-alcoholic beer, and people would come and start signing up for our product just because they saw what our landing page said. So we never really had a chance to think about what we're leaving behind, because we just felt this pull towards where we're going.
You were getting a lot of pull, and so you knew that was where you need to run. Yeah. That's fantastic. One of the things that struck me, Vike, is you're talking about privacy, and when you enter a hype cycle like an AI, you tend to want to adopt all the language of that hype cycle, and everybody that used to be something else is now an AI company. Everybody that used to be something else is now a privacy company. Everybody that used to be something else is now some kind of data proprietary data company, right? So as you mentioned, you kind of changed your language a bit, right? And so. What did you have to watch out for? What did you do right, and what do you feel like maybe you didn't do right, or what do you have to watch for?
Yeah, I to answer that question specifically, I think what we did right was to make sure that, like, say for example, our landing page, we just literally had to say that this is the ultimate infrastructure for training privacy-preserving large language models. We would identify all your privacy issues, and it's also the market which I think played a key role, because someone like a Bloomberg, when they released their Bloomberg GPT, what we saw was they highlighted that, yes, we are not releasing the model. The main reason being that people can extract sensitive PIIs or information from this model. So we didn't even have to do that publicity. We had companies who were openly accepting that there are so many privacy vulnerabilities. So all we had to do was we wrote blogs saying that how you can extract information from, say, ChatGPT or other kind of language models. And so basically, from projecting ourselves as an machine learning optimization with privacy company, it was more privacy and regulation compliance. And yeah, we just had to literally brand ourselves that way. And literally in 3 weeks, we were able to get our Series A done. So
see, the timing was perfect.
The timing was perfect
for your round as well.
And I think it's basically we just got to know what the market people wanted, and we were early enough to position ourselves and rebrand ourselves in a way which we knew that this is a software which big Fortune 100 companies, 500s are definitely going to use. Yeah.
And Jana, for you, when you sort of did this pivot, were there any raised eyebrows? Wait, Craftful is doing that now. That wasn't quite what you were talking about before. And so how did you kind of manage that
Yeah.
process?
I mean, I think, we went from something where we didn't have as much usage to something where we had a bunch of usage quickly. So I think we were just known for, very quickly became known for the pivoted version of us. So that wasn't necessarily as big of a question mark. I think we did, we did time things right in terms of we always kind of tried to build to begin with a very quick, very limited feature set so that we could ride the wave of everything that was happening. So we launched our kind of very first MVP right before the ChatGPT API launched, which was right before the GPT-4 launched. And so I think we could ride out this wave where folks were product managers and product builders wanted to use this new technology for their workflow, and we were there and we had a solution for them. So I think just having that and being able to talk, we were like ChatGPT for product builders, and then over time evolved to our current positioning as Copilot. But I think just being there, having a very specific solution for the specific audience while leveraging everything else that was sort of going on, I think it was a helpful use of Hype Wave.
Yeah. Do either of you have any thoughts about you have all these buzzwords, right? And do you just slap everything on and see what sticks? Or do you have to be more careful? How do you find a balance?
I think it's more less so from a positioning perspective, but more on the are people constantly using our products? When I talk with users, are they telling me, here's how your solution solves my problem, and here's how I used to do, I would get on, in the beginning, I would get on calls with VPs of product, and they would screen share and show me how they manually were doing the same thing that our product did, but it took them it took them hours to do it over the weekend, but now they can just do it in minutes. So it's just the sense of am I actually solving a problem? I think in Hype Wave, if the feedback you're getting is something like, oh, this is a really cool solution, then I've used the hype terminology and everyone's hype excited about it, but there's nothing there, right? That's what you want to avoid.
Yeah. Both of you, I think, are talking a lot about that product market fit that you're finding, and I'm wondering if there are any particular metrics that the two of you look at. How do you know when you've started to find that product market fit? What scale are we talking about? How do you get that sense?
Yeah, for us it was mainly we haven't hired any salespeople in our team till date. It's all been inbound from we're talking about some of the topmost consulting companies, finance companies, insurance companies. So I feel that that is what showed us that okay, we've actually hit product market fit, because even without any marketing, we were getting inbound interest from the CXOs and the VPs from these big Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies. And one thing we were seeing were that the rate at which, say for example, onboarding an enterprise customer, we were doing it say for example back in the days if it was one big customer every month. Now we are talking about one customer every 2 weeks, and now it's at a place where we literally have some of the largest companies we're onboarding once every week. So I think that is when we realized we've hit product market fit, because this has become such a key problem without which literally organizations cannot deploy any generative AI applications. So I think that's the moment we realized that PMF is hit.
How about for you, Jana? What's...
Yeah, so we primarily look at adoption and stickiness and churn as our kind of key. Obviously, we don't have any natural virality in our product, so it's been looking at when people come to our landing page, do they instantly want to use the product, right? Are they signing up? And are they inviting the rest of their team? That's sort of how many invites are our users sending along? And then kind of the key piece is, are they using us, every day or every week whenever their cycles make sense for their product building? Are we seeing that stickiness for the folks who have done the right kind, who have connected their feedback and actually should be getting value out of the product? We are also looking at churn just to get a sense for if folks churn, why are they churning? Is there something that isn't, that we can optimize? But that's less around product market fit and more just around product optimization.
You mentioned earlier that there was a lot of pull, right?
Yep.
And you're talking about, hey, you're getting a lot of inbound. It's not much outbound. Is that what you're looking for? Is that sense of pull?
Yeah, absolutely. All of our usage at this point is 100% organic inbound. So which originally came mostly from Twitter. After some point, we started getting featured by product managers in various product blogs and newsletters, podcasts, and so it's sort of like snowballed from there. But it's been 100% organic at this point. And
like you're doing the same thing. It sounds like it's not really active marketing or pushing sales. It's responding.
Yeah, exactly. We just write like blogs, put out stuff there, and then like organic inbound.
Yeah. Okay. But it is getting your message out in some way, right? Whether it's through blogs or through some kind of newsletters and things like that. I think this area that both of you are in this whole AI space is like changing so quickly and moving so fast. And how do you keep up? Like, what do you guys do to keep on top of the latest stuff, right?
Yeah, for us, like being like a deep tech company, we have to like make sure like we constantly like hire the best people and like make sure like, because a lot of like the stuff which we do is like research, right? Like hardcore like LLM optimizations or like privacy research. So I think like in order to be top, it's really important to be like up to date in all the technology. Not only thinking about what is needed, say like right now for the customers, but also like kind of like anticipating what is needed like in a year.
Yeah.
So
for you, like I mean, privacy is such a well-known issue, especially for enterprises, that it seems like everybody says that they can protect data and make things private, right? So how do you keep above the noise and like,
I mean, again, like this is what we say, right? Like this is not something which we just came up with in the last like say year, like or like last like 6 months once ChatGPT became famous, right? Like a lot of us in our team, we all have like our PhDs, like experience in like developing like privacy preserving machine learning protocols for like 6-7 years.
Yeah.
So kind of like this gets reflected whenever we talk to a customer, because the customers are also like very well educated when you're talking about big enterprise companies, so they exactly know what they want. So I think that's how you differentiate from the noise. Is like you actually show that like not only your product is easy to use, but you are also an expert in the space and can actually help the customer like navigate all the problems and issues which they're facing.
Yeah. Jana, for you, how does Craftful stay on top of things, respond quickly? I mean, because it is a constantly changing space, and now you're hearing co-pilots, right? Co-pilot for everything, right? So
that's right. Yeah, I mean, I think the technology is changing really rapidly, and I think there's just a lot of confusion in the space generally. I did earlier this year, I did start a community for Gen AI founders, and it's now a few hundred founders where we exchange advice on kind of how to build in this space and pitch in this space and position in this space. So that's been incredibly valuable. We're a Y Combinator company, and I think obviously normally we just lean on the Y Combinator network. When I started the Gen AI community, that was in the very beginning of this. By now, a bunch of YC companies are in the same space, so now I feel like I'm getting as much information from both of those founder communities. I would say that's been a really big part for staying up to date, is just talking with founders that are all building in this space and are experimenting. For example, at one point earlier this year, we hit the limit. We outgrew GPT-4 because we just had too much data that we were sending in, and the token per limit was limiting how much data we could send in and analyze per day. And so I went out to my network and started asking kind of like, has anyone come across this? And actually there was a certain rite of passage, like there wasn't a whole lot of folks who had this problem. And this is not because we had so many users back then, we just had so much data.
Yeah.
And I got really great advice from the community in terms of, have you tried different things?
I wanted to just follow up on that. This might end up being the last question, but you're getting a lot of thoughts from the community. Everybody seems to be an expert in AI these days, and so they're all bombarding you with, hey, try this, try that. I used to be a a blockchain investor a couple of years ago, and now I'm an AI investor, right? So how do you manage that kind of feedback, and as a builder, what kinds of advice do you look for? What kinds of advice do you think, yeah, you know, not so much?
I mean, I think like that's really, really a critical question, because as a founder, your time is so limited. As a founder at a fast-growing company, your time is incredibly limited. You just have a second to think about everything, basically. So you have to think about what's the problem that I'm trying to figure out, and who is the best person in my network.
So be focused.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Like, you don't want to listen to everyone.
Yeah.
Like, and even as I go out to the the Gen AI community, I'm looking at who's building these kind of LLM applications, who've had scale, who, you know.
Yeah. So be focused and be targeted about what you're looking for. How about you, Vike?
I think like listen to the customer. So like the customer like demands, like at the end of the day, you're building a business, and like
forget the investors, forget the advice.
Yeah, just
customers.
like focus on the
customers
customers, put them first.
Yep.
Make sure you're always like available for them, and just like focus on their like problems.
Yeah. Well, 20 minutes went by really fast. So I really want to thank everybody here for attending, and to TechCrunch for putting all of this together. To Vike and Jana, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks for having us.